Okay, we're going to go ahead and move into the business section of our meeting. Thank you very much to Chris and Angie and Scott Woodrum for coordinating the tour of the new Magistrate and Court Services building. That was a wonderful experience. And we'll start the meeting this evening with a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance led by our County Administrator, Angie Hill.
Please stand as you're able for a moment of silence and then join me as I lead us in the pledge. Let us pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. We have a really exciting presentation to kick things off this evening. We have Todd Klingenpeel, the Director to the Virginia Law Enforcement Professional Standards Commission, and he is here to present the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department with their reaccreditation certificate. Welcome, Mr. Klingenpeel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the board, thank you for having me here this evening. I'm here on behalf of the Secretary of the Commonwealth and also the Director of the Criminal Justice Services. On January 5th, we sent a team of 3 highly trained assessors to take a look at every aspect of your sheriff's office. If you think back to January 5th, it was a Sunday and it was snowing really hard in Montgomery County. And they all made it to first the Roanoke Fire and Rescue Building to take a look and do a full static display of your sheriff's office and look at many aspects of it and interview members of the sheriff's office. They met with the sheriff, Captain Hollingsworth, Lieutenant Marshall, and many members of the staff of your sheriff's office. I got to tell you a little bit about this process. This process is a very tough process. There is 192 standards that they have to meet in over 570 bullets. And out of the over 400 agencies in the Commonwealth that are eligible to become accredited, there's only 111 that are accredited. And so that says a lot for the professionalism of your sheriff's office. And to tell you even more about that, this program started in 1998. Your sheriff's office applied for accreditation in 1998. And they achieved accreditation in December of 1999. They're one of the longest, if not the longest, agency in the Commonwealth of Virginia to be accredited. And that says a lot about your agency. The assessors came and they found the agency to be highly professional. They were dedicated to the service of their community. They were friendly, professional, well-informed, and highly trained. They had nothing but good things to say about the agency. And I have to tell you, my interaction with your sheriff and every member of his staff was phenomenal. So this evening, I would like to present to Sheriff Parton and his staff this certificate of accreditation. Sheriff, congratulations.
Thanks, sir.
The floor is yours.
Members of the board, Madam Chair. I'm not going to speak long, but I can tell you accreditation is very difficult, and it requires someone basically full-time just to maintain the records and everybody else to provide that person with their records. This accreditation in particular was extremely hard, and I won't go into details, but without the accreditation board and Mr. Klingenpeel, we might not have made it across the finish line this time due to some unforeseen circumstances. DCJS, Mr. Klingenpeel, Chief Booth, Roanoke City, Sheriff Draper, and Martinsville made sure that we got a few more days that we needed. And when Mr. Klingenpeel says that the assessor team came in bad weather, I don't know if you guys remember that, but nobody was out. That was one horrible weekend. And those folks, one of them came from Northern Virginia. Another one came from down around Tazewell. And really, those folks probably shouldn't have been driving, but they came to make sure that we got our assessment done. So this is a big deal for us. It's a super big deal for the county because we've been accredited for so long, and this would never happen without Captain Hollingsworth, Lieutenant Marshall, and the rest of the command staff and so many others at the sheriff's office. So it's a big deal, and we're awfully proud to have it. Thank you.
Congratulations, Sheriff Parton, and to your whole team. We are so fortunate to have a law enforcement agency such that Mr. Klingenpeel describes. Thank you so much for your continued focus on education and training for your department. It means a lot to us. Let's all give him a standing ovation really quick just to express our thanks. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing. This is for a special use permit from Amsonite LLC to allow a short-term tourist rental within an existing single-family dwelling on a property located at 940 Nelly's Cave Road, and it will be presented by our Director of Planning, Bree Hopkins. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Good evening. So as you stated, this is a special use permit request for a short-term rental. The site is located just outside the town of Blacksburg on Nelly's Cave Road. Move that a little closer. The area indicated in blue is town of Blacksburg property. So you can see the stars right here. This is Lester's Gate Road. This is the parcel here outlined in yellow. It is a small triangular parcel. Here is Nelly's Cave Road. This is your zoning map. It is zoned residential R3. This is residential R2 in brown. The green is agricultural A1. And I will take a minute to note there is a short-term tourist rental here. It is permitted by right in the A1 zoning district. So they do have a permit for it. The white is town of Blacksburg. So the applicant would like to request a short-term tourist rental within an existing 520 square foot 2-bedroom dwelling. The property was unknowingly in violation. As soon as we called it to the gentleman's attention, he did start working to achieve compliance. We've reviewed the supplemental regulations with you all before. They are the same as they have been in the past. It does address things such as number of occupants by VDH permit. This site is on septic, so it does apply here. And then other things such as no signs identifying the short-term tourist rental, meeting all requirements of the Virginia State Fire Prevention Code, and posting a copy of the noise ordinance along with connection to local phone service. This is the floor plan of the existing dwelling. You can see it's 2 bedrooms, living room, kitchen, laundry. It does have a wraparound deck here. And then this is the view of the property. This is the dwelling here from Nelly's Cave Road. This is the rear of the dwelling where they do have a rear yard with fire pit. And then this is the view looking down towards Lester's Gate away from the town of Blacksburg. And this is the view looking toward the town limits. So the dwelling is served by public water, but it does have a private septic. We do have an operations permit issued by the Virginia Department of Health that allows 4 occupants for the 2-bedroom dwelling. It is not located in a FEMA flood zone, and it is surrounded by a mixture of zoning districts, as we pointed out, along with the 1 short-term tourist rental that's next door. It has 2 parking spaces here. VDOT had no safety concerns, and they took no exception to the request. Again, they indicated traffic impacts would be minimal and no more than a standard existing single-family dwelling. Fire safety will be addressed during the zoning and building permit process. The property is equipped with smoke detectors and fire extinguishers and safety instructions. Gatherings or parties will not be allowed. The owner has set quiet hours from 9 p.m. to 8 a.m., and he is local and available to address any concerns should they arise. Outdoor lighting is limited to the existing porch light at the front door. No additional lighting is proposed or planned at this time. It is located in an area of residential transition, which is stable, low-density residential neighborhoods. This light aqua color is designated as urban expansion, so you can see it's in close proximity, and then of course the green is the town of Blacksburg. These are the similar land use goals that we have reviewed in the past for short-term tourist rentals. They do also apply to this property, the planning, land use, cultural resources, and economic resources goals. The proposed use does meet the regulations outlined in our supplemental regs. It also remains residential with no more impacts than a full-time single-family residence. The owner did note that this property may also be used to provide temporary housing for like local individuals that are displaced for a certain period of time, whether it be because of home repairs or selling a house and not having a place to live before they buy a new one, or insurance-related issues. VDOT took no exception. We did contact the town of Blacksburg. They have not stated that they have any concerns. The Planning Commission met on March 19th and held their public hearing. There were no concerns stated from adjoining property owners, and they did recommend approval with some conditions on a 7-0 vote. We did have 2 members absent. Those conditions include occupancy shall not exceed 4 occupants. That's to comply with the VDH permit that was issued. The property shall be registered with the Commissioner of Revenue's offices for taxes. Any applicable permits must be obtained from the building department, and then all those requirements outlined in the short-term tourist rental shall be met prior to issuance of the zoning permit. Adjoining property owners were notified. We did place a sign at the site, and it has been advertised as required. We have not received any comments from the public at this time. However, there may be someone here to speak this evening. And with that, I will take any questions you have for me. The applicant, Mr. Cummings, is here, and he can also answer any questions.
Great. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for Bree? Sarah, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, the only question I have is the parking area
Yes,
is kind of small,
yes.
but I'm sure it's all within whatever is required. Is that correct?
Correct. VDOT has reviewed the parking area. They had actually applied to relocate it. The owner did through VDOT, and they did approve that permit, but they did not have an issue with this site either.
Okay, are there any other questions from the board? Seeing none, thank you, Bree. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. I did not have anybody sign up in advance to speak to this short-term tourist rental special use permit. Would anybody like to come forward and speak on this issue? Seeing nobody come forward, I'm going to close this public hearing, and we'll move to our next public hearing, which is to amend Montgomery County Code, Chapter 10, Sections 10-52. And again, Ms. Hopkins.
Thank you. So yes, this is for a text amendment to the zoning ordinance. This is to make a couple of different changes. So the first is to clarify that the zoning compliance officer and other positions that would support the zoning administrator have the authority to administer and enforce the zoning ordinance on behalf of the zoning administrator. We also would like to update some language to allow with changes to the Code of Virginia and update criminal and civil penalties. That's also due to a change with the Code of Virginia. So if you remember, fiscal year 2024, we got approved for the first time ever a new position of zoning compliance officer. We have filled that position. She is here, Ms. Laura Rogers, and she assists our zoning administrator in administering and enforcing the ordinance. She's out routinely doing site inspections, working with property owners to achieve compliance, sending notices of violation, and will be representing Montgomery County in legal proceedings for the first time tomorrow morning. It's my understanding. So the proposed text amendment does clarify that she is authorized to do that on behalf of the zoning administrator. It would also authorize any future positions that we had awarded to assist the zoning administrator in doing that as well. Language is added to address interpretations of the zoning chapter with reference to state code regarding vested rights and modification of a determination made by the zoning administrator. We also updated some language authorized by the Code of Virginia that would allow the zoning administrator or his or her agents the right to obtain a zoning inspection warrant. This would be made after reasonable effort was made to gain entry prior to doing an inspection warrant. We would do this as a very last case scenario, and if there was an issue with health, safety, or welfare. That would be required to be approved by either a magistrate or a judge prior to being issued. So we would have to request that. And then we also made a few updates to the criminal and civil fines to reflect some changes to state code. Planning Commission held their public hearing on March 19th. We did have one member of the public request some additional information on the maintaining or obtaining the warrants. His question was, would that have to be issued by someone else? And we did clarify it would have to be issued by a magistrate or a judge. They recommended approval on a 7-0 vote. Again, there were 2 people absent. We have run the proper advertisement in the news messenger. We have not received any inquiries. However, there may be folks here that would like to speak this evening. And I will take any questions you have for me on this one.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any questions about this one? Okay, no questions this evening. And we did have a sign-up sheet for this public hearing in the hall as well, but nobody signed up for that one either. So if anybody in the audience would like to come forward and speak to the amendment to Montgomery County Code, please do so at this time. Seeing no one come forward, I'm going to close that public hearing. Next item on our agenda is public address. And we do have some regulations for public address that Bria is going to put on the screen for me, or Jen is going to put on the screen for me. I did have a lot of people sign up to speak during public address, so what I'm going to do is call the names on the list first. When I get to the end of the list, if you would like the opportunity to speak, I'll continue to call until I don't see anybody else coming forward. We're going to open tonight with Tim Thornton. Please do remember when you come forward to state your name, where in the county you reside, and you have 4 minutes. Welcome, Mr. Thornton.
Thank you. My name is Tim Thornton, in an echo chamber apparently. My name is Tim Thornton. I live on Old Town Road in Shawsville, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to express my opposition to the proposal to change the county's comprehensive plan and redesignate more than 630 acres of the historic Fotheringay property from resource stewardship to medium residential and open space. According to the staff report on the request, the maximum density for medium density residential area is limited to 5 units per gross acre. That could, in its extreme, translate to more than 1,600 houses. I'm not really going to address that or the potential a residential development has to worsen an already serious problem the property's neighbors have with runoff. And I don't plan to say anything about the Fotheringay Mansion that's been on the National Register of Historic Places since 1969, beyond noting that the application that put it there called Fotheringay one of the finest post-colonial plantation homes and one of the major historic landmarks in Southwest Virginia. I want to talk about the land itself and the county government's consistency and integrity. Resource stewardship, according to the county staff report, is for rural areas with high resource value based on soil types, environmental sensitivity, or other unique land characteristics. And nothing about that land has changed since it was protected by this designation. It's still prime farmland, according to the American Farmland Trust. It's still in an area with about 2,600 acres protected by conservation easements or contained in a natural preserve. County staff says that since the 2025 comprehensive plan was adopted, public water and sewer service has become available. Well, they became available because the county built Eastern Montgomery Elementary School, and they say that that also expanded the village boundary. Staff reports also says that Montgomery County Elementary School and Eastern Montgomery High School are operating below capacity, and that is true. It's also true that Charlesville Middle School, built during the Great Depression, is within 25 students of its capacity, while the beginning and the end of the system have extra capacity, the middle does not. The report says the Elliston-Lafette Village has continued to expand westward with the addition of commercial and industrial business ventures, further expanding the village core. None of the residents of the area that I've talked to has any idea what the report is talking about here. The Dollar General moved in, and what was long ago Wilson's Truck Stop is a restaurant again, but they're east of Elliston. Staff says farming operations on the property have continued to decrease, requiring less acreage for the active farming by the owners. The owners still rent the land for farming. And if they've chosen not to use prime farmland for farming, that still doesn't change the nature of the land. The most significant changes then are changes the county made, primarily the availability of water and sewer. Resource stewardship is meant to protect land that shouldn't be developed. And approving this change would say the county means to protect that land only until you can get water and sewer to it. I don't believe that's what the county meant. If it is, you need to say it outright. And if it isn't, you should deny this request. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on the list, we have Henry L. Bryant. Following Mr. Bryant, we have J. Alden Baker Ellie. We'll wait until you get up here. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Esteemed board, my name is Henry Lawrence Bryant. I'm a lifelong resident of Elliston. My father ran a mortuary and funeral home there. And I'm deemed a local historian. I'm a historic reenactor. I respect our history. I also sit on a nonprofit board that is working to expand historic tourism in our area, up through Elliston, Shawsville, on into Christiansburg. I think the historic value of Fourth and Gay way outweighs putting any kind of development there, number one. Number two, who knows what's under that ground? There's been no archaeological work on it, unfortunately, and I think it should be. Point two is, I know a lot of people in Elliston. Most of them know me. And the feedback I'm getting is, we don't want to be a bedroom community for anybody either. You put that many houses up there, and we are a bedroom community for Salem, Christiansburg, or Blacksburg. And we don't want that. And it's going to increase traffic, and I feel like it would create issues in the long haul. The other thing is the runoff. As a resident of Elliston, I live right on the Roanoke River. The river's in my backyard. The flood of '85 was within 15 feet of my house. In the early 70s, there was a flood that dumped a lot of water, particularly on the South Fork of the Roanoke River. And I remember people taking boats up the Elliston Straightaway to get from Elliston to Shawsville. And that's a fact. And if the number of houses are built there that y'all are talking about, and we have just a 5-inch rain just for the houses, not for the paved areas, you're looking at over 2.5 million gallons of excess water runoff, which could impact my home. My home is outside of the 500-year floodplain. This could cause me an issue in being stuck back into the 500-year floodplain that me personally could be a problem. I just don't think it's warranted. I don't think it's worthy of your consideration on changing the zoning or doing anything there other than keeping it as a historic area. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have J. Alden Baker Ellie, and following that, we have Susan Moffett. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I have spoken at a couple of meetings now, and will do my best not to repeat myself too terribly much. but I thought.
Sorry
I-
to interrupt. Can you state your name and where
Yes,
you
I'm
reside?
sorry. Alden Baker Ellery, and I live at 1260 Echo Hills Road in Elliston, Virginia. I wanted to share with you, if I may, a picture from our living room that is currently overlooking much of the land that the proposed development will sit on. So for about 6 months of the year, what we will see if that land is developed are all those houses. That was initially what brought me to the meeting to share concerns about that, as well as the impact it may have on the value of our home, as well as the possibility of increasing our property taxes. I also echoed some others' concerns about the need for an archaeological survey and perhaps a way to preserve and honor the history of Fotheringay and the property. I have some major concerns about a lack of existing infrastructure in the area to support the volume of people that a housing development that size could bring. In addition to changing the natural beauty of the area, I think there are concerns about the impact of wildlife in that area, particularly deer trails, as well as concerns about the speed limit on that section of 460, the impact on traffic and potential accidents, things of that nature, as much of that stretch of highway is 55 to 60 miles an hour currently. As also others have mentioned, concerns about flooding, as there are still some major issues with runoff and the potential that could have on 460 as well. And then concerns about soil disruption, perhaps the releases of chemicals and natural gases like radon, and being sure that there's a plan to address those things, in addition to the off-gassing of the plastic and vinyl-based building materials that can be harmful and create long-term health problems. It was mentioned several meetings ago that the hope of allowing this development would be to provide housing for more young professional families. My husband, son, and I make up a younger professional family and have concerns about the likelihood of increased property taxes, even with the means to pay them within reason. We chose to move to Elliston for what it is and value its small, rural, nature-centric community. I'm disturbed to think that the impact of increased taxes and how they would likely affect families who've been in the area for generations that have less income than we do. What happens to them if they can no longer afford to live here or to stay in their homes? The idea of gentrification creates some important ethical questions about how you want to care for the longstanding members of the community and the people who already live here. So I ask what considerations you've given this and that you use that in making your decisions going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Susan Moffett. Following that, we have Kitty Rakes.
Good evening.
Welcome.
My name is Susan Creasy Moffett. I live in Baltimore, Maryland. I was raised in Shawsville in George's Run, and my family still calls this community here. I have deep roots in Montgomery County. This is where my family, my friends, and my neighbors live. People who have always meant the world to me. I am the 5th generation to grow up on my family's land. I have history here, and I care deeply about what happens here. Even this very building where I am speaking to you tonight holds part of my family's story. My grandmother and my aunt, I found out tonight, worked here when it was the overall factory. This is my 3rd time coming to speak to you against the Fotheringay development. I have researched this issue thoroughly, and I am confident that by now you have as well. You all are familiar with the pros and the cons. I don't believe there is anything I can say that will influence your decision one way or another. You know that you are trying to build a 400-plus housing development on a former plantation that has never undergone a formal archaeological survey. You know that it is highly likely that you will encounter the unmarked graves of the enslaved people who lived, suffered, and died on that land. You know that you are planning to build a 400-plus housing development adjacent to a floodplain. You know that you are adding 400 new roofs, parking pads, walkways, driveways, hundreds of thousands of square feet of impermeable surfaces. You also know that even the best and most well-planned stormwater management systems can and do fail. You know that adding 400-plus new homes will strain roads, emergency services, water, sewer, and other utilities, and you know that you will probably need costly upgrades. You know that bulldozing over 300 acres of farm and mountain land will destroy critical wildlife habitat, pushing local species out of their homes as well. You know that you are bringing a massive housing development into a community where most people will never be able to afford one of those homes. Nearly half the community lives at poverty level. The very people who have lived, worked, and built this community are about to be priced out of the land that they have called home for generations. This development doesn't even bring jobs to the area, not to the people of Elliston. The saving grace of this whole situation is that more kids will be added to the Eastmont schools. I would like to remind you that last Monday you voted to raise taxes to pay Montgomery County teachers a livable wage. You'll obviously need more teachers for more students. Do you have a plan for that yet? I would also like to add that your teachers probably wouldn't be able to afford housing in the new development as well. There are so many reasons why this development is wrong for the community. I want to point out that we are at the end of a 20-year comprehensive plan. A new one is already in the works. When I began speaking out on this project, my main concern was that my experience living in the Baltimore and Harford County area of Maryland has been that once one of these developments goes in, more will follow. My entire, or most of my 300-mile drive from Baltimore to Shawsville is now bulldozed farmland and unfinished housing developments. You have something very special in Montgomery County, and the people of this county deserve better than housing developments as far as the eye can see. I also do believe that Montgomery County needs to remember something very important. While you seem focused on growth and moving forward, you must also remember to respect the people who live here now. Regarding the county that you are working to improve and grow, the people in this room are people who have worked to
Thank you, Ms.
contribute
Moffett.
and
That's your
shape it as
time.
well, and their
Thank
voice
you.
matters too.
Thank you. Next up, we have Kitty Rakes, followed by Debbie Owen. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Kitty Rakes. My husband Ron and I live on Barnett Road, Elliston. Tell us, have you already decided how you're voting on this subdivision? Or have you already voted? We attended, well, first of all, I want to say we voted you into office, so please listen to us. We're trying to tell you what we want, and we don't want this subdivision. March 19th, I attended the Planning Commission meeting. A 900-plus signature on a petition was just tossed aside, and it meant nothing to them. At the opening statement, I flipped my notes over and I wrote, "We've already lost." The meeting was an insult. It was a waste of our time. It was just to pacify us. It seems that the builder thought the first decision was so easy, he came back for more. He wants to increase the height. Tell us, are the rumors true that a member of the Planning Commission is a realtor? If so, in my opinion, that's a conflict of interest. We all know that this subdivision is not for the residents of Elliston and Shawsville. It's for enhancement of these landowners and this home builder. And we all know that money talks. We like what has been referred to as rural Elliston. The people that don't like it, they should move. And there's a lot of us that would help them move if they don't like Elliston. This large subdivision has a big effect on my and my husband's life and our neighbors that are our friends, some of us that have land that joins Barnett Road. It took me and my husband 10 years to find 2 acres for sale in this rural area. We bought 6 acres of land on a private road, Barnett Road, and we at the time thought the right-of-way up the Barnett Road was for the Fotheringay Farm, not for 473 houses and 4,460 daily trips. Some of that's going to be a shortcut on our private road because it's already been noted that that's a future connection for the subdivision. Barnett Road is a private road, and we maintain it. We patch the potholes, we mow the grass beside of it. And also, there's a spring on this Fotheringay property that the builder has commented would be used for ponds. We and several of our neighbors have access to this spring, and we should have a direct path to this spring. We don't want to go in and tear up roads, streets, people's yards to get to access to this spring. This road already has a flooding problem when it rains a lot. We're asking each of you to put yourselves in our position. Would you like a high-rise complex right beside your property line? I doubt it. Do any of you even live in Elliston and Shawsville? We understand that people should be allowed to do what they want to with their land, but there should be restrictions. A good comparison is, you wouldn't put a barn for pigs right beside a restaurant. So don't take our beautiful Elliston straightaway for a high complex that the neighbors and the residents of Elliston and Shawsville that travel this road daily don't want to look at. Again, please listen to us. Don't let money talk. Don't turn Elliston into Blacksburg. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Debbie Owen. Following Debbie Owen is Bob Beard. Welcome.
Thank you. My name's Debbie Owen. I live at Hickman Hollow Road in Shawsville. I feel like a lot of good points have already been made tonight, so I'll just be quick. I think that the community in Shawsville and Elliston kind of understands that, we'll eventually grow at some point. It's how we grow that is the question tonight. And I think that there is a need for housing. We understand that as well. But we also are a very unique and beautiful place with tremendous history and beauty. So we deserve more than this sort of cut and paste job that we're seeing coming from another development in the county. We respect property rights, but we also feel we might be being forced into some kind of a suburban sprawl experiment by absentee landowners. Some people mention the benefits to the schools by bringing new families into the area, and perhaps there's truth to that. A rising tide of houses could maybe lift all test scores and sports teams. We might even get a JV football team out of it. That may in fact be the case, but so will overcrowding at the current middle school, and so will larger class sizes and less individual attention. Better teams, but more competition for those spots. Students who now are part of the team may not be in the future. There are solutions to raising test scores and improving teams like higher expectations and accountability that don't involve doubling a town's size in one development. I have lived in suburbs like this in Dallas, Texas. I could reach out and touch my neighbor's house, but I didn't necessarily know their names. I taught in a large high school where we had over 500 kids per grade level. I didn't know much about all of my students that I taught, and I saw many of them struggle to find a niche among so many kids. So we understand that there's going to be growth with the towns, and that will affect us, and we'll grow eventually too. But it doesn't have to be like the proposed change tonight. We could maybe change to low density rather than medium density. Or we could find a way to grow that fits into the unique character of our area. We could even think a little bigger and reserve our end of the county for a place to visit and enjoy by adding greenways or bike trails. We could develop historical tourism, agritourism opportunities in the area. We don't have to be another Blacksburg. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Bob Beard. Following Mr. Beard, we have Lindsay Harden. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Bob Beard. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Last Monday, you guys voted raise our taxes, and that money was supposed to go to the school board. And so I decided and attended the school board meeting Tuesday night, and I must say, I brought you guys some napkins because a lot you guys, 5 of you Democrats, have egg on your face for giving money to the school board for what they did to you guys and what they said and what they promised and didn't deliver. So the first thing, the school board preached how important it is to have meal money for the poor in Montgomery County. The first item to cut was close to $1 million in meal money. Heck, Derek even voted, yeah, I'm going to vote yes for the tax increase just for the kids' school, can have some meal money. Now we have hungry children in impoverished homes in Montgomery County. Think about that. The second egg, school safety, that was a big topic. Well, what happened to those funds? We have a handful of Democrats from Blacksburg saying it's okay to raise taxes for our children. They are our future. The school board said no. We know Blacksburg hasn't kept their end of the school safety for years, but Dr. Guitry will be tougher. He will make Blacksburg Town Council live up to the responsibilities to make Blacksburg students safe again. Think about that. Isn't it ironic that the citizens say one thing and the Democratic officials say something else? They say no. The third egg, the White Privilege Conference, for this year cost $20,000, and yet the professional training budget was only $50,000. That's close to half the amount of money for professional training went to one conference. Okay, and that's all about white privilege, about white people who are oppressors, inflicted systemic racism. Heck, after listening to Dr. Bregan, him explain it in his feel for white guilt. The fourth egg was special ed teachers. We need more special ed teachers. Don't forget, this year they budgeted for 7 new special ed teachers, only hired 2. So there's 5 that didn't use that money for this year, but they want more for next year, okay? So that's $400,000 for this year, $500,000 for next year. So that's $900,000 in a friggin' black hole to move around. Where's the transparency and accountability? More importantly is, what about the falling enrollment and falling grades, okay? The fifth egg, teachers pay, compression funding. Teachers want more money to be able to retire at 20 years versus at 36 years. Heck, does Social Security work that way? Heck, no, it doesn't. All the same, the teachers, all the name of teacher retention, they got to reduce to 20 years. They reduced the number of years just so they could benefit, okay? The cost is over $500,000. So they kept that, but they got rid of the school safety and the meal program. And don't forget, the teachers have had, this is the 10th consecutive year, the teachers have had a pay raise, okay? So the winners are the teachers, and the teachers union wins. Parents and students continue to lose. And again, please ask Mary what role she played in this, okay? Dr. Bregan signed to end DEI certification, yet there was no discussion in that meeting about the $400,000 DEI budget, okay? I have the book titles, lesson plans, indoctrination of the from that conference and stuff, okay? So now I know where all the egg shortage is. It was here last week, and you guys got egg all over your faces. This is for everybody. By his wounds, we are healed. That's Isaiah 53:5. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then the final person that we had signed up to speak this evening is Lindsay Harden. After Lindsay speaks, there will be opportunity for more people to come forward. Welcome.
I'm a little nervous, so bear with me.
Okay.
So my name's Lindsay Harden, and I live on Crozier Road in Elliston. And I just wanted to talk to you guys about the fathering gay property and how it affects my family. A lot of people have made a lot of good points tonight, and I'm not really going to talk about everything they spoke on. So my issue with it is that I do not want my property taxes to go up. My family cannot afford it. Last year, I think our property taxes, we have our taxes escrowed, so our monthly mortgage went up over $100 just because of taxes being raised. And it's not something that we can afford. We spend about $160 a month. I have 3 children, so we have spent $160 a week in groceries. And luckily, the county, Eastern Montgomery Elementary gets free breakfast and free lunch. And without that, I don't know that I would be able to feed my kids properly. And on top of I'm sorry. It's just, I really have a hard time with this because I cannot afford it. I cannot afford more property taxes, and it really scares me. I do not want to move out of my home. I love it there so much. My husband and I moved there because he grew up there. It's 10 minutes from where I grew up. I lived in Glenver growing up, so it's close to home for me. And it is where my husband grew up, like I said. But we just can't afford to pay more. And I know you guys just increased taxes, and I hope that you take this into consideration, that the people around there cannot afford increased taxes from Stateston because of that. So that's all I'm going to say. So just remember that whenever it comes time to vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that was the end of the list of people that had signed up in advance, but if there is anybody else that would like to come forward and speak, just remember to state your name, where you reside, and you have 4 minutes. Welcome.
Chris Waltz, 1370 Rigby, Christiansburg.
You might need to move the mic up just a little bit. There you go.
I didn't go to the school board meeting. I listened to about as much of it as I could tolerate. They did a number on y'all, didn't they? Guess no free lunch for the little kiddies unless they meet the means test. Though I did, if I'm not mistaken, they did give themselves a pay raise. They actually make more on the school board now than the Board of Supervisors do. And basically they said, screw y'all, you don't get to tell them how to spend their money. I know that there's an option you may have, which would be to make a motion to reconsider and strip that funding back out and tell them, look, too bad, because it's not May 1st yet. You have that option. And then make them come back to you piece by piece for what they need or what they want. Instead, they just lied to you, and I'm sure that quite a few of you up there are perfectly fine with it because you just like to spend other people's money. But yeah, I would definitely look at that because they make fools of all of you at school board. And save the little bunny rabbits down there at Elliston.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward to address the board this evening? Welcome.
Thanks. My name is Josh Williams. I live at 591 Allegheny Spring Road in Shawsville. And I spoke previously concerning the fathering gay development, and I'd like to speak again. This time I'd like to kind of piggyback on what Lindsay just shared. Thank you for sharing your testimony. I don't think her story is a unique one in the area. I think there's a lot of people in that same boat because Elliston, Shawsville are affordable places currently to live in Montgomery County. And Montgomery County needs affordable places to live. And we talk about the need for housing and the need for affordable housing, but I don't think that's what this development is going to bring. The average home price in this neighborhood is $350,000. The average home price in Montgomery County currently, outside of the towns, is just short of $325,000. The average in this neighborhood is higher than the average in the county by $25,000. It is $125,000 higher than the average home price in Elliston. So the locals can't afford it. It's going to drive up home prices, home values, and therefore tax assessment values on these. Now, Blacksburg's average home price is $530,000. So a $350,000 home may be affordable housing for people coming to work at Tech or people coming to Salem who are going to make Elliston their bedroom community. But that's not what's happening in the community. And this development feels like extreme gentrification on poor rural American towns. When Balzer and Associates was acquired in December by Westwood Professional Services out of Plano, Texas, who in turn is owned by Blackstone Energy Transition Partners, a multinational private equity firm out of Park Avenue, New York City. and they are claimed as the world's largest alternative asset manager. That is the organization trying to build this neighborhood in a small rural Virginia town with 438 current homes in the town. So a new development of 409 homes dropped in on this community is not going to bring good, beneficial services. It's going to make money for a multinational private equity firm. It's going to bring nothing but problems, as people have brought forward. And we don't even know if it's going to bring families and children to the school. States in themselves said 40% of their customer base are empty nesters. So we really don't even know if it's going to improve our school system. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Paige Williams. I'm Josh's wife. I live at 591 Allegheny Spring Road in Shawsville. I'm not speaking just for myself tonight. I'm speaking for over 1,000 citizens who have signed a petition who are standing together against the proposed development in Shawsville and Elliston. This is my third time speaking here, and I really hope that what we're saying matters. I hope it matters, and I hope you're hearing us. Josh and I are committed to using our voices to advocate for our neighbors, to preserve our story, and to preserve the unique way of life that makes our community so unique. Our residents, I want you to know, are now meeting regularly in Shawsville and Elliston. We are meeting because we have concerns that are not being adequately addressed, and we are committed to doing research and to digging in so that you hear us and hear what we're saying and what we're asking. First, much of the land surrounding the proposed development is actually protected through conservation easements. People have made sacrifices to keep that land intact and to preserve it not just for themselves, but for generations to come. Now this development proposes to insert dense residential housing right alongside these preserved lands. It sends a very troubling message that long-term conservation can be swept aside when enough money is involved. Second, as my husband just spoke about, taxes and gentrification. This development is not about affordable housing. Based on the projected prices and based on the median income of our community, it's clear that these homes will be out of reach. As said before, nearly half of our community lives below the poverty line. These are farmers, teachers, mechanics, retirees, and they will not be the ones buying these homes. In fact, as we've said so many times tonight, when these higher priced homes are built, property values will increase, which means property taxes and rising rents. And so even a simple $100 increase in annual property taxes can create real economic strain. We just heard Lindsay's story, and she is not alone. For families living paycheck to paycheck, it's not a small increase. It's the difference between making it and falling behind. Our Elliston neighbors, many live in trailer parks. You know it, you drive down there, it's trailer park after trailer park. They have modest housing, and they will feel the squeeze first. And rather than solving a housing problem, you will create a new one. You may not provide affordable housing, but you may actually create homelessness. That's the reality. And it's not being talked about, that we will actually have families living in their cars because they cannot afford the trailer that they have lived in for years. And I won't rest, we won't stop. And so we are meeting consistently in our community, and we are going to dig in and do research on the environmental impact, on the impact, the archaeological needs that need to be done, runoff. I mean, there's a list we've created, and we're not satisfied with the answers we're getting. And so we are committed to doing the research and bringing it to you. You will hear our voices. We will not stop. And we are committed to bringing you not just, oh, we don't want it, they're outsiders. My husband and I are outsiders. We're not from here. It's not about that. It's not about emotion. It's about real people's lives that matter, and their voices matter. And so Josh and I are committed to coming to you, and we're going to share their stories. You're going to hear our voices. You're going to hear the narratives because we think it matters and we think it's important. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else? Welcome.
Hi there. My name is Zach Milton. I live in Elliston, Virginia on Moomaw Circle. Again, these houses are built next to our public schools, which I mentioned last time, haven't grown in over 20 years. Last week, my oldest daughter had kindergarten orientation. The teachers were great. The school is great, but I can already see the cracks that I've heard so much about. There are empty classrooms, there are budget issues showing, and you all know what kind of fixes these issues. It's going to take more people, which means more funding, more money in the PTA, and ultimately more votes for our area. Some worry that we're being predatory towards our poor population. Many have already been displaced from Blacksburg, Pulaski, Wytheville, and that we must stay the bottom floor for all these people since they don't have any other housing, and that success is going to be measured by their ability to move away into a nicer house elsewhere. Because people from Elliston can't afford these homes, even if they are built. You know David Hagan's from Elliston? Wow, that guy could probably afford a house down there. I went to school with someone who graduated from Harvard. He's a federal judge up in Boston. We have successful people from here, so it's kind of, hurtful to say people from here can't afford these houses. So sorry if I seem angry in some of my talk. It's not really anger, it's frustration. Many of the people against this speak about community and things like that, but a lot of their biggest community involvement has been protesting this development. We had a food pantry in our local library that lost its funding recently. No protests for that, all right? Blacksburg, Christiansburg want to pick up the bill for that? No, it's going to come from local funding, local people, probably people who are going to be able to afford these houses. It's like passing around an offering plate at an empty church right now. New available PSA, that's going to be able to legally pass this. You guys have seen what you need to pass this. That's going to be what can pass this. And if you deny that and get sued, because it's pretty obvious that's all this is going to take, your Blacksburg constituents going to pay for the legal bill. Reiner people want to pay for the legal bill. We had a last meeting, I heard that we had a $1.5 million fire truck that we needed. Seems like a pretty big budget hit already. I come from a long lineage of hell no people, all right? The rest of us in this county, or the rest of this county has outpaced us so much that we need a compromise. If we say no this time, how long is it going to be until we have another opportunity? For growth, we need it right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward this evening to address the board? Welcome.
Hi, my name is Laura Purcell. I've lived in Blacksburg for 17 years. I'm a member of the Montgomery County School Board, but please know that while what I say tonight is informed by my work on the board, I only ever speak for myself. I'm here because I want to thank you for approving the 1-cent tax increase and for allocating some of that extra money to public schools. Fairfax County Public Schools has about a $150 million shortfall. Richmond has a $74 million shortfall. Williamsburg, James City County has about a $15 million shortfall. But Montgomery County chose to invest in public schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward and address the board this evening? Seeing nobody, I'm going to close public address. And we will move, we do not have an addendum tonight, so we'll move to our consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Ms. DeMotz?
Aye.
7 aye.
Thank you. Okay, and moving on to old business. The item of old business for tonight, my computer has stopped working, is an amendment to the 2025 Montgomery Comprehensive Plan for Fotheringay LLC, and we have Bree Hopkins.
Yes. Okay, so I have a few slides. We have had a lot of questions. You all have received some. There were a couple of questions after the public hearing last time. So I've prepared a couple slides to try to help us work through some of that and get you the answers that you've requested. First of all, there have still been some questions regarding a comprehensive plan and how that relates to a rezoning. So once again, a comprehensive plan is a guiding document that outlines goals and objectives for how the county wants to see development as it pertains to land use. It designates different land use categories, and there's been some confusion as to what those categories mean and what they stand for, so I'm going to break that down a little bit here in a minute. The one thing I do want to note is it does not change the zoning of a property. It is referenced when we've received a rezoning application, but it does not change the zoning of the property. So whatever is zoned on Father and Gay Agriculture A1 right now, whether or not this is approved at the end of the night, it will still be Agricultural A1. So comprehensive plan amendment, what we look at when we are evaluating that request is that criteria for the considerations are met. You may remember us going over the criteria, and one of those has to be met to even be considered for approval. We look at environmental impacts of development. Is the property in a flood zone? Does it contain endangered species? Topography of a property. You may remember I mentioned steep slopes greater than 25%. Water and sewer availability, and you'll see I have that italicized here because there is a difference. Existing road infrastructure. Those are all things we look at. When we get to the rezoning, it's kind of like if you're building a house. And so you go out and you look at a piece of property and you say, I have these boundaries to build within. And so then a rezoning is the details that go into that. What do I want my house to look like? What components do I want it to have? What rooms do I want it to have? That's what a rezoning is like. So does that request meet the goals or objectives outlined in the comp plan? i.e., does it fit in the box that you've created? We also look at environmental impacts. We take a deeper look into stormwater, erosion control, critical site features or species. You may remember we've had requests in here before. The bats come up every once in a while, so we might put a restriction that you can't cut trees until after the bat season has passed. And then we look at water and sewer capacity. So capacity is different. We say, is there water and sewer available to the site? Capacity is whatever the rezoning application that we have in at the time, can the water and sewer system handle that amount of units or that amount of development? So that's when we look at capacity. We also look at the proposed construction timeline because that relates directly to school capacity and whether or not our schools can handle additional students. And then we look at the new road infrastructure. Does it tie into the existing network? Is it public or is it private? So that's when you get into the nuts and bolts when you look at the rezoning. So Montgomery County 2025, we do have future land use designations and associated goals or objectives. We also identify 6 areas of the county. We refer to them as villages. They have additional designations, so it's kind of like a layer. And then they also have additional goals related to those. So our land use designations in Montgomery 2025, you may remember resource stewardship. That is the whole dark green area here is designated as resource stewardship in our current comprehensive plan. Rural is the light green areas. Residential transition are the pale yellow. Village and village expansion are the light blue areas. This is the Elliston-Lafayette area here. Urban expansion, these are the light orange and the dark orange. The dark orange does indicate that there is an urban development overlay on those. There is also an urban development overlay on the village areas, but it doesn't show because it would cloud the villages out. So the 2 designations of those that I listed that apply here are resource stewardship, which is what the property is currently designated as. It is not in a village. And then village expansion, which is what they are requested to go to. Village expansion areas are natural expansion areas for the villages that may potentially be served by public water or public sewer extensions. So the Montgomery County 2025 village land use designations, this is the Elliston-Lafayette Village. And you can see here there's a lot more colors because there are individual designations. So while this is village or village expansion, there's also open space, which is the green areas. Civic, they are the blue areas. Mixed use is purple. Mixed use would be anything from commercial uses, light industrial uses, could be residential. Low-density residential are the pale yellow, and that is up to 2 units per gross acre. Medium-density residential is the orange here. The site that is up for consideration is actually, oh, sorry, I'll go back, is actually right here. So medium-density residential is the orange. High-density residential is this pale color here. That is up to 8 units per acre. So that's for multifamily developments, mobile home parks, more dense development. And then, like I stated, all the village areas also have the overlay of urban development areas. So the request for the village designation is for half of the property, 307.72 acres, to be designated as open space, and then 326 plus or minus acres to be designated as medium-density residential. Medium-density residential is a combination of a mixed-density residential use. It can include small lot subdivisions, townhouses, single-family detached homes, or duplexes. We normally encourage a walkable design, so trails and or sidewalks, connectivity. We also do require recreational areas to be designated, such as neighborhood parks, squares, or some green space. So if the comprehensive plan amendment is approved, I wanted to go over the impacts. First of all, by right development would still be permitted whether or not it's approved tonight. They can develop by right agricultural A1 as long as all the zoning ordinance requirements are met. The open space area, there is one designation in zoning that could be requested without coming back to you for another comprehensive plan amendment, and that would be Conservation C1. Now again, they could still develop under the A1 zoning district, but if they wanted anything different, C1 is their only possibility at this time. That is our most restrictive zoning district. The medium-density residential, the zoning districts that could be considered if it is improved, are residential zoning districts, most of them residential R1, R2, R3, or rural residential, planned unit development residential, and potentially traditional neighborhood design infill. The issue with this district is it does allow flexibility up to 8 units per acre. Staff would not support that because it would not be in compliance with the 5 units per acre I don't want to say required, but suggested by medium density residential. So we've heard some information tonight about archaeological surveys, and we've heard some concerns about the potential for finding human remains. We have had the question, what happens if that happens? So we've looked up state code, section 10.1-2305 does govern that, and it basically states you have to cease work immediately, and you have to notify the sheriff's office and the Department of Historic Resources. The Department of Historic Resources would provide the guidance on how to proceed. There are civil penalties for noncompliance with those procedures, and the site is either normally preserved or there are arrangements made to remove and relocate those remains to a different location. But that would all be done under the Department of Historic Resources. We also have had some questions about the existing conservation protections. So you may remember this property was in an agricultural forestal district. It was removed. That district is designated in brown on the left map here. So that is the AFD 9 district as it stands today. The green areas are resource stewardship, and then this, of course, is your village of Elliston Lafayette and your village of Shawsville. On the right is our conservation easement map. So the areas in light green are all existing conservation easements. These are the properties here. This, of course, is the village area. And then we've also put the flood map on there so you can see where that lies. Because it's been a couple of weeks and we may have people in the audience who were not here before, We just wanted to refresh your memory on the criteria that is required to change a comprehensive plan designation. You have to meet one or more of the following criteria, and that's that it was misinterpreted or overlooked when the original comprehensive plan was adopted. Conditions have changed substantially, an undue hardship exists, or the amendment will effectively aid in the implementation of other goals of the comp plan. Staff did identify 2 of those are met. One is the changing conditions. Because there is the potential to extend public utilities, it currently does go to the property boundary and did not in 2004 when the village was adopted. There is now the availability of water and sewer. Again, capacity is discussed during rezoning. This is only that it is available to the property. Construction of Eastern Montgomery Elementary and High School, that did further extend the village boundary, so it did change the adjoining land use of the property, and it did increase enrollment capacity at those schools. Land was previously held in the AFD 9. Most of those properties were automatically designated as resource stewardship unless the property owner requested it to be designated as something different. And the reason is that is one of the most supported land use types in resource stewardship because it does offer a bit of conservation. The second criteria is implementation of other comprehensive plan goals. It does provide additional acreage to facilitate residential development in the county. In the 2025 comprehensive plan, a goal was set for 80% of all growth to occur within the 2 towns and the 6 village areas and the urban expansion areas as designated. And then it does comply with the criteria as outlined in the county policy, as I stated just a moment ago. That is all that I have for you this evening. I am happy to answer any other questions. States and Homes is also available if you have any direct questions for them.
Great, thank you, Bree. And I'm going to look to Marty. Before we start discussing this, should we take a motion and a second to open the floor for discussion?
Yes.
Okay. So on the subject of the amendment to the 2025 Montgomery Comprehensive Plan, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and now we'll open it for discussion, and I'm going to see, and I'll just reiterate what Bree said. We do have 2 representatives from States and Homes here this evening to also answer any questions about this future land use amendment, and I'll start asking questions. I'm actually going to start with you, Vice Chair Fijikowski, since this is in your district.
Bree, thanks for showing the difference between the comprehensive plan and zoning. Currently, the zoning request has it been pulled or delayed, or what would you say?
It has been placed on hold at the request of the applicant.
Okay. So there won't be any zoning hearings for a while until something changes.
I do not have a date. I do not foresee it occurring before June. It could be even potentially later than that. We will send out on-you notices and we will re-advertise when that date is determined.
Okay. And even though you explained it in the broader sense, if you would, why is zoning or some of the terms of zoning included in our agenda tonight for a comprehensive plan amendment?
Help me understand your question a little better.
The wording in the agenda
Yes.
where it says, here, let me pull it up. That ain't it. Okay, waiting for it to load. Mine's not.
Are you talking about where it says the remaining 326 acres designated as medium-density residential? Is that what
Yes.
you're talking about?
Yes, that and, yeah, the medium-density residential policy designation permits family housing at a density no greater than that. Why is that mentioned in this request, which is for a comprehensive plan adjustment?
Right, because that is not a zoning district. That is a future land use designation, medium density residential. So what that does is there's a separate set of goals in the village plan that align with medium density. So we look at that when we receive a rezoning request. So for instance, if we received a rezoning request and they wanted to do, 8 units per acre, staff is probably going to say, this is not in compliance with the comprehensive plan. It's designated for medium density residential, which is 5 units or less. Low density residential is designated for 2 units or less. So that's kind of the difference between those designations, but it is not a zoning designation. Your zoning designations are what are in your zoning code. So agricultural, residential R1, R2, R3, rural residential, residential multifamily.
Thank you. And
You're
that's,
welcome.
so that you're basically saying is the rezoning hearing is not scheduled yet?
It is
and
not.
we don't know when it will be scheduled. But when it is, then folks will have an opportunity to address that.
That is correct.
That the comprehensive plan is basically for planning, for looking
Correct.
at the future and to determine where any homes could be built, any subdivision could be built, and this particular one has water and sewer moved out to it that was requested by the Fotheringay owners as far as I recall, when the land was sold for the elementary school.
That is what I have been told. A comprehensive plan amendment would be required for any development beyond by right development on this property. So they would have to request some type of comprehensive plan amendment because resource stewardship supports agricultural A1 zoning, conservation, and in some cases rural residential. But rural residential actually has a larger lot size requirement than agricultural A1.
And if you would, just explain a little bit about what by right means.
So by right means development that is allowed currently by A1. Single-family dwellings are allowed in agricultural A1 district. We do have a limitation on the density that is allowed. It is based on the size of parcels. And then we have what we call the sliding scale. So they can develop so many lots based on whatever acreage of a particular parcel. Those lots, once they're developed, they do have to have other requirements met of the zoning ordinance, such as road frontage, access, lot size, impervious surface, all of that.
So the owners of Fotheringay could, if they wanted to, build 52 homes with road frontage on Route 460.
Based on the information we have available, not all of the properties have been surveyed. So we don't know the exact acreage of each property, but it looks like somewhere around 52 dwellings is what they could build by right. Each of those dwellings, with the exception of probably, I think, 5, would have to have public state-maintained road frontage. So it is conceivable financially that public road frontage would be Route 11 460. Otherwise, they would have to build a state-maintained road.
And the comprehensive plan is like you said, it's a guide.
Correct.
So in order for the community to build something that would be acceptable, it would be best to go through the zoning process and find what would fit and what wouldn't.
In my opinion, as a professional planner, yes.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Okay. And do we have any questions on this side?
Just one.
Supervisor Grafsky?
Thank you, Bree, for catching us up or reorienting us to all of this. Remind me of our projected timeline for updating the comprehensive plan. We're in that cycle right now.
We are. It's exciting.
I know.
So we are currently developing our goals and objectives, and that will go to our steering committee. I'm going to put a little plug in here. We're having an open house here on May 29th, so we would love to see everyone. And that's for the overall comp plan. We are starting our village plans in June, and so we will be going to every village between June and the end of August, beginning of September. We hope to have a draft plan available and before you late 2025, early 2026 for adoption.
Okay. And it's possible that this is all ends up being addressed in the update to the comprehensive plan, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Supervisor Biggs?
I want to thank you for the clarification because it's been very confusing, and even today we were getting, questions asked. So I think that's very helpful. To me, it's two different things. One of the things, and we're not really talking about rezoning as we're talking about the comp plan, but in my mind, when you're talking about rezoning, you're going to have to look at everything, right? You're going to have to look at utilities, you're going to have to look at land use, you're going to have to look at runoff, you're going to have to look at stormwater. And some of the citizens have reported that particularly they're concerned about water and runoff and that kind of thing. When something like that happens, do they report it back to us in any manner?
Occasionally, it just depends. Sometimes we'll get calls about erosion and runoff, and our Department of Environmental Services will go inspect and see what can be done. Sometimes the erosion or runoff is a state issue with VDOT. Sometimes those are drain clogged or something like that, and so Environmental Services can also engage VDOT in that case. It just depends on the owners, but routinely we do get calls, yes.
So if the developer were to go forward and you were reviewing all of these things, they would all become part of that process of when someone wants a rezoning, correct?
Correct. So for instance, once a rezoning is approved, we go into a detailed review process that's even more detailed than the rezoning. Part of that is they have to submit calculations for all their stormwater, all their runoff. They have to, it gets very, very detailed when it comes to stormwater, and I'm not going to pretend to know what I'm talking about there. I do leave that to our Department of Environmental Services, but I mean, I have seen books 2 inches thick of calculations come in depending on the development. Mainly what we do during rezoning is make sure they do have areas that are compatible for stormwater management, that can manage the stormwater. Our Department of Environmental Services looks at that, and to make sure that they do have some plan for stormwater moving forward. And then if it gets approved, then they look at the calculations to make sure it's a big enough area. Do things need to be adjusted? Is their method the correct method? Because there are various methods of stormwater management also.
I want to thank you for those comments because I think that's very helpful in some of the questions that we were asked as board members because it's two separate things.
It is.
So thank you.
And it gets more detailed as it goes through the process. Yes.
Okay, and do we have any questions down here? Supervisor Bone.
I was going to say that at our last meeting, when David Clark was here from VDOT, I spoke to him about where the water ponds in heavy rain situations right below the elementary school, and he acted like that maybe he didn't understand where it was when I asked him to look into that 2 years ago. So I would be meeting with him to go out there to take a look at that. But if that turned out to be unacceptable, if the water's not draining the way it's supposed to, then that could impact the zoning request.
Potentially, it depends. The impacts from the development have to, trying to think how to say this, I may look to Marty. For proffers to be accepted, so if the applicant said, hey, we know there's an issue with drainage here and we want to fix it, it has to be attributable to the development. Did I say that correctly, Marty? Yes.
So if the calculations were made, does VDOT weigh in and say the stormwater pipes that we have aren't adequate, aren't the right size?
Yes. Okay. And they could require improvements to that intersection.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Supervisor Kitts?
So I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, and they brought it up, the archaeology portion, and thank you for bringing it. I'd just like a little bit more information on that before we get into anything else, because, and you can get with me offline on that. I know we talked a little bit. I just want to get in that because it is a historic property, because there is a, I'm not an archaeologist, nor do I pretend to be one, nor do I play one on TV. So I would say there's a good bet that there's probably some issues there, but I just want to be able to know a little bit more about the enforcement and how we hold the group accountable for what's going on. So I'm with Steve, though, on the part about the Supervisor Fidzikowski for the part about the drainage, because we saw multiple pictures on drainage problems on the last time, and I do think that's important that we address that. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Bone?
To follow up on the archaeological Department of Historic Resources, do we have anything in our comp plan that relates to that whatsoever?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Will we have?
We can have, yes.
Do other counties have?
I think the way our comp plan is worded is probably kind of a generic, we will work with the Department of Historic Resources to protect historical properties. I would say that's how it's worded. Normally it is something vague like that because those codes and regulations can change, just like any code and regulation. So it's normally an overall goal, but we can definitely look at some wordsmithing for the new comp plan, yes.
I really hate to use this example, but I don't have any other that comes up to my mind right now. Before we tore down the buildings to put the new magistrate's office where it is, one of the buildings was very historically important to our county, if I recall correctly. And we put forward the effort to see if we could even salvage the building, right? So does any comprehensive plan, you can't speak for any other, it would seem to me that there might be some proactive ways to protect some of our highly possible areas in the county that might have historical significance, remains, what have you.
And so in a way trying to explain that. So your comp plan goal would probably be something like support a historical program to protect those resources. And then the teeth to that, you would have to have like a historical preservation ordinance that would deal with that. The county does not have a historical preservation ordinance.
Okay. So my other question is, let's say that this comprehensive plan amendment isn't approved tonight for whatever reason. The amendment, and another amendment can come up at a later time. For half of this space, or a quarter of this space, or whatever. We don't have to approve all of this space.
Correct.
Okay. I have other questions, but, don't have to ask them.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Go ahead, Supervisor Grassley. I'll come back to you.
All right, thank you. I have one more question. I think I asked this 2 weeks ago, but I'm going to ask again because 2 weeks ago was a really long time ago, and this is a pretty complex issue. So, as the amendment is proposed to us, if we approve the amendment, the property still remains zoned agriculture A1. They can still only develop by right what you can do in an A1 zoning district. And a rezoning request is required in order to do anything other than that. However, being in the village expansion, is that right?
Correct.
They are still, though, limited to zoning types that fall kind of within that medium density residential umbrella.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Well, if you follow your comp plan,
Right.
Correct, right. Yeah, this is all contingent on this
Correct.
part going forward.
No, what I'm saying is that the comp plan is just a plan. But if a certain board says, we're not gonna follow the plan, we're gonna rezone this, even though it's not in compliance with the plan, there's
Okay.
nothing that stops you from doing that.
Okay.
I mean,
And that was going to be my next question was, even if we say no, can they still
They can still request the rezoning, yes.
rezoning, but then it falls outside of the scope or the
Correct.
the guidelines recommended within the comprehensive plan. And even if the amendment does not go forward tonight, it's still A1 and can still be developed by right
That is correct.
along those guidelines. Okay, I think I got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. And then any other questions? All right, I'm going to send it back to Supervisor Bone.
I'm going to switch gears, but it all relates here. The Price's Fork Village
Yes.
and Price's Fork is very different than this stretch.
Agree.
So it makes sense that we potentially would have the two big developments on Price's Fork because of its proximity to Blacksburg, or on Pepper's Ferry, the possible developments or the developments on Pepper's Ferry Road because of the proximity to Radford and Christiansburg. Is there anything in our comprehensive plan that differentiates proximity to the towns, proximity to, to have this issue or this, it's not a confusion, this question about if this passed and the zoning passed, they could double the size of their community. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I know that if I lived there, I wouldn't want that to happen unless there was a Roanoke right there, or a Blacksburg or a Christiansburg right there kind of thing. So do we have any kind of guidance that says, let's not increase the size of a village area more than 25%?
We do
anything
not.
like that?
We do not. We do have in the comprehensive plan, it talks about developable area, and that's why you see a lot of the green space in the Ellison Lafayette villages, because there's a lot of area within the village that's not developable, but it's important to the village. So it's designated as open space, but we do not have anything that says only 25% of this village should be built. The only real goal that we have related to that is 80% of all development should occur within the two towns or within the 6 areas designated as growth areas or within urban expansion areas.
But nothing that says how much growth,
Correct.
the magnitude of growth over time kind of thing.
Right. I think there were some goals put in there as far as a total number of housing that was needed for the county.
Oh, yeah.
But it didn't really distribute it to say this many should be in Charlesville, these many should be in Elliston.
So could you, my last question, bring up the floodplain overlay map
Absolutely.
graphic? Because I don't know what, the dots that are to the left of the Roanoke Road.
Yes, that is a difference in floodplain designation. So the hashed areas, the bloodlines, that is considered floodway. We do not allow any development within the floodway. I should say any new development within the floodway. And then the areas with the little dots that's still in the blue color, that is zone AE. So we do allow you to build in flood zone AE. With certain restrictions. So for instance, it has to be elevated 1 foot above base flood elevation. It has to be flood proofed, all of that good stuff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, is there any other discussion before the vote? Supervisor King.
Is there any other by right that they could do with this property?
By right?
Yeah.
Only the items that would be allowed in the agricultural zoning district. I'm trying to think of a few off.
But there is
top of my-
other things.
There are intensive agriculture is allowed by right. We allow churches by right in all districts. We would allow, I think schools is a by right use, fire and rescue. Then there are several special use permits they could apply for, but mostly residential and agricultural related uses. Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay. Are we ready to vote? Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. Fidjakowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
No.
Miss Biggs?
Aye.
Miss Bone?
No.
Ms. Dematz?
Aye.
5 aye, 2 nay.
Okay, moving to our new business this evening, we have the special use permit for Amazonite LLC, short-term tourist rental at 940 Nelly's Cave Road. That was the subject of our first public hearing this evening. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Miss Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. Fidjakowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Miss Biggs?
Aye.
Miss Dematz?
Aye.
7 aye.
Next item of new business is to amend Montgomery County Code related to the zoning ordinance, the zoning compliance officers, and that was our second public hearing this evening. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Miss Biggs?
Aye.
Miss Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. Fidjakowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Miss Dematz?
Aye.
7 aye.
Next item is an Montgomery County Public Schools capital fund transfer. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Miss Biggs?
Aye.
Miss Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. Fidjakowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
And Miss Dematz?
Aye.
7 aye.
Next item is to schedule a public hearing related to the Public Service Authority non-appointment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Can I ask Marty a question?
Sure.
Marty, a second to last line, you have not appoint at this time a new member. What does a new member mean?
At least, well, and when I was drafting it, what I meant was someone who would take the place take your spot on the board. New member.
Am I a new member if I was appointed to this spot, or would I be an old member if I was appointed to this seat?
I think you could be an old member, and if you were reappointed, you would then be a new member.
When would I be an old member and when would I be a new member again?
Right now, you're an old member because you're not a member of the board.
Okay.
But you're a former member is probably a better word. But if you were in what I'm talking about here is the board decided not to appoint a new member to your spot. So if they appointed you to your old spot, then I guess you would be the new member.
But in your email explaining it sort of sounded like it was only for someone other than me, but it's not. It's for anybody to fill that spot. That's what you're saying. Is that correct?
No, what I'm saying is the board doesn't want to appoint anyone to that spot at this time.
Okay, so we have a motion. Is there a second? Okay, seeing no second, the motion dies. And we'll move on to our next item of new business, which is Economic Development Week, celebrated May 11th through 17th, 2025. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Ms. Bakes?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Ms. DeMotz?
Aye.
7 aye.
Next item on the agenda is National Emergency Medical Services Week, celebrated May 18th through 24th, 2025. Is there a motion?
Motion. Second.
All right. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Ms. Bakes?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Ms. DeMotz?
Aye.
7 aye.
Okay, that concludes our new business. Moving on to our reports this evening. County Attorney, do you have a report?
I have no report, Madam Chair.
Shocked. Okay. And our County Administrator, Angie Hill, do you have a report for us this evening?
I do have a report. Chris and I were joking earlier that when Marty has no report, since he is the attorney, it's probably a good thing. I have a few things that I'm going to share with you this evening so the public can hear it as well, and then I'm going to follow up with an email to the board to make sure that nothing gets overlooked, and you can have that for reference. We're very excited this week on Wednesday, April 30th at 3 p.m. We're going to have a soft opening of Teal Park in the Roanoke area. It's been a long time coming. It's going to be a great facility. It's not completely finished at this point. It's very close to being finished. It's at the, when it is completely finished, it's going to have 3 softball diamonds, a full-size high school baseball field, not necessarily to be used by the schools, but just as a reference for the size of the field. 2 playgrounds, 3 picnic shelters with bathrooms, and a very nice walking trail. The walking trail and some of the playground areas are ready for use, so we're going to have the soft opening on Wednesday. Within a month or so, the bathrooms and shelters will be ready for use, and then the fields will be ready for use when the grass on the fields is established, and Parks and Rec will let us know when that's ready to go so that programming can begin, which we expect to be later this summer. We want to make sure we take care of the grass during the summer so it can be well established. Also, that'll help the grass, it'll help kids from getting injured, so we want to make sure that we take good care of that. We'll have another event later in the summer to celebrate the full opening of the park, along with the 50th anniversary celebration in Montgomery County's Parks and Recreation Department as well. The second thing I wanted to talk about is the passenger rail groundbreaking that was held last week. That we have a lot of exciting things that are happening. It was a great event. There were a lot of state and local officials there, including Governor Youngkin. Also at the event, I want to give a shout out to Jen Harris, our Public Relations and Community Engagement Director, and also to Sherry Wyatt, who is the Executive Director of the Montgomery Museum. They had a table set up celebrating VA 250, and I have a flyer to show that Governor Youngkin noticed on his own and gave a shout out to. As you know, I think we're going to promote revolution to revolutionary logo that is on a license plate that people can purchase. If you want to pre-purchase a license plate, see Jen, she's got forms for that. This Thursday, there's a Chamber Eggs and Issues event Thursday morning, and it's regarding healthcare and emergency management, and I wanted to make sure the board knows that Michael Geary, our Emergency Services Department of Fire and Emergency Management Services Chief, will be speaking on the panel for that, as well as reps from both of our local area hospitals and some other folks. I need to read the next one a little bit because it's not my area of expertise, but it's important and good news. We've received notification that we received Highway Safety Improvement Program funds for Route 8. That was another look of excitement. $12.2 million in funding has been allocated from the state for this project. It will cover the northern and southern sections of Route 8, extending into Floyd County. And these two successful applications, combined with funding from the Smart Scale program, recreational access funds, safe routes to schools, and a revenue sharing project that was in the Route 8 corridor, have resulted in more than $23.3 million in improvements for Route 8, for safety improvements over the past 7 years. So that's a really great thing that has happened through the state. Not without a lot of hard work from our planning staff who helps us get those lined up and the application submitted. We had presented to you some potential opioid abatement projects over the past few months. One of those was for the Community Health Center, and the other was for the co-response program. Upon further vetting, we realized that those projects were not well suited for that program. The Opioid Abatement Authority changed guidelines as they moved forward. Everyone is still learning how to navigate this process, so those projects did not meet the guidelines. The co-response program has funding through the New River Community Services program, and they may need a small amount of county funding to match that. That will not be an issue. The Community Health Center has sent us a letter requesting the county consider funding a portion of their architectural and engineering design work. So we'll bring that back to you in the future. And finally, this Saturday at the Huckleberry Park, NRVCS Community Services is going to sponsor a Day of Hope, and that's going to be combined with the NRV Recovery Ecosystem Project in Montgomery County. It will be from 11 to 2 at the Huckleberry Park again on May 3rd. It's a family-friendly celebration to promote wellness and recovery. It's open to everyone. There will be live music from regional bands, food trucks, activities for all ages, and information and resources from local service agencies. So if anyone is able to attend, I think it will be a great event. And I think that is the end of my long list of reports.
You took all of Marty's time.
I did.
All right, moving on to board reports. I'm going to start with Supervisor Kitts.
No report this time.
Okay. And Supervisor Bone?
No report?
Supervisor Biggs?
I just wanted to add to the event last Thursday about the passenger train. I mean, this thing has been worked on since 2013, and it was so exciting to see over 200 people there. And people in the community that saw the news coverage have, expressed their excitement about this, to me, and I know to the rest of you. A lot of us were able to attend, and also in attendance, we had Senator Kane and we had Congressman Morgan Griffith. And so the excitement, even among all of them, Governor Youngkin, they were all excited about it. So keep your fingers crossed. It's supposed to be 24 months or sooner, and hopefully we'll all be around so we can go on the train. And that's it.
Supervisor King?
Don't have no report, but I would like to speak on something. I sent each one of you an email last week about all these people come in front of us during our budget session and asked us for this, and school security officers. Majority of them, the citizen come in was from Blacksburg. I think I heard from 3 people in District D wanting a tax increase. I think it's this board's, I know, as I said in my email to each one of you, it's not our place to keep eye on where they spend money. That's their decision. I understand that. But number one is, I think this board needs to question about the school security that they asked for. They did receive the $280,000 for the securities. I think this is something that we do need to talk to them about. And I would hope that every citizen that come in here, every citizen that emailed us and had that list on there, school security, free lunch and breakfast, pay raises, and special ed teachers. I would hope that they would email every school board member and administration the same way they did us. And I do appreciate citizens coming, but it's our job as a board, when citizens come to us, to ask questions why it didn't happen. And I do realize, as I stated in my email, I did not vote for a tax increase. I did not vote for the budget. But I still represent District D, and they deserve answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Grafsky?
I mean, the railroad groundbreaking was my big update, and I think we've covered that one pretty well. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. Vice Chair Fidzikowski?
We had, I attended on Saturday, the 50th anniversary of McKeep. It was very interesting. It was a very good turnout. They had a lot of activities going on there. It was a good showing. They went over the history of McKeep, which was very interesting, from its humble beginnings to what it is now. And they serve so many of our citizens that are in need. It's a great system or a project they have going, and I think they've got everything ironed out because they operate completely with volunteers, which is just amazing in this day and age. So I was privileged to go to that. Also, want to say that the railroad dedication, I am just looking forward to watching that property transform. I think everybody that's been through there has seen they've cut down all these trees, and there's going to be a lot more than that. That old railroad building is going to be refurbished, and of course they're going to put on the landings where the trains let people on and off. It's going to be amazing, and I don't think a lot of folks understand how amazing the whole project is to have come to this point, from a project that was supposed to be at the mall. Well, actually, it was supposed to be at the aquatic center, then at the mall, then over on Cinnabar. Yeah, that's correct. And the prices were just incredible. And to get it down to a reasonable price and to put it right exactly where it needs to be has got to be a miracle. And I'm really looking forward to years ahead where the folks down in Bristol might get the same treatment that we're getting. So it was a very good day. Thank you.
And I just have a short report this evening. All of you know I'm on the Board of Directors for the Virginia Association of Counties. We had our spring meeting this past weekend in James City County. We actually stayed in the city of Williamsburg due to where hotels were located enough to house everyone. But I wanted to read an excerpt from the VACO president, Ruth Larson, who is a supervisor in James City County, because it speaks so truly to what many of all of you have said tonight about the rail event even. The historic triangle, Williamsburg, James City County, and York County, has a long tradition of working together to create opportunities and experiences that benefit all of our communities. From joint planning efforts and shared public services to exciting new projects like the Regional Indoor Sports Center, our collaboration is a model for what local government can achieve when we pool our resources and ideas. And I bring that up to highlight the importance of collaboration. It's not just here in the New River Valley, it's across Virginia. And I think what we do here is a model for other localities. And it was really great to see another locality really embracing that collaboration with their neighbors. I also wanted to highlight a couple of areas of concern. During these meetings, the supervisors from around Virginia are able to talk about what is specifically going on in their counties. We've had quite a bit of conversation here about uncertainty of federal funds. So not surprisingly, that came up quite a bit at the meeting, as did some of our Northern Virginia counties are feeling significant impacts from the reduction in the federal workforce. And so I know VACO is working to help kind of give some guidance on those issues, especially as it relates to uncertain federal funds in the future. They're definitely working on that. And then one exciting note from the spring meeting this weekend, many of you know Jerry Booth, who is a supervisor in Floyd County. And he was elected to serve as VACO's second vice president. So that puts him on the path to presidency of VACO and a spring board meeting in Floyd County in the future. And that's all I had to report this evening. Seeing no additional business, we'll call this meeting adjourned.